is Dr. John Stewart. I'm a biophysicist, electronic engineer, and I do a lot of research in the areas of energetic medicine and zero-point energy. Last time, 2 weeks ago, we promised to start a course using the book by David Wilcock, The Source Field Investigation, because it's a great book to form a basis for a course, chapter by chapter. But there will be other spin-off ideas that will come out of that particular chapter and things that are very relevant to that. So we're going to talk first about Dr. Cleve Backster and his famous work. He in 1966 made an important discovery in relation to consciousness and its influence on the nature of reality. In 1966, Cleve Backster was working as a polygraphist. We think he invented the polygraphy machine. He worked with the military and with the CIA, and then later formed his own polygraphy company. And he had immense experience, and he used in those days EEG amplifiers, EEG meaning electroencephalography. So he would pick up the microvolt signals from people's brains with electrodes, and also heart rate and other parameters that would show indications of stress and possible lying or deceitfulness. So he had a lot of experience. He decided one day to put a couple of electrodes on a plant, a plant that had large enough leaves. So when he did that, he found that there was some microvolt signals coming, just like many of his human clients. And those signals he was able to amplify and record. But the important experiment was when he decided to make some changes. He decided to light a match and burn one of the leaves. At that moment, his intention seemed to have been picked up by the plant, which responded violently in an electrical fashion. So he had a record of this violent response on the part of the plant. He went on to do further studies on that, discovering that the plant would respond not only to negative intention, but to positive intention, emotions, and that plants could seem to communicate or connect with other plants and other living organisms such as bacteria and shrimp, and even eggs. He did work with chicken eggs, finding that they were actually quite good producers of information. They were perhaps more alive, produced bigger responses. So he did a lot of work. So that's all in chapter 1, and that emanated out of his interest in hypnosis and altered states of consciousness. And he worked with another, Dr. Garrett, who had done work with remote viewing, also for the military, and found that the same kind of experiences happened, that people were able to communicate and derive information from a non-physical source. So that source seems to be giving us information and connectedness at higher levels. So the question is, what is this source, this field? And I have a colleague, Professor Sarg, who's just written a book this week on the nature of this field, the sub-quantum field. It's not about quantum physics so much as beneath quantum physics. Quantum physics has a wavelength of around 10 to the minus 10 meters, 0.1 nanometers to 1 nanometer. So we start to get quantum effects around there. But this is much lower, where there's vast amounts of information stored. This is around the area of 10 to the minus 20 meters, where we think this is called the cosmic crystalline lattice, which stores information in some vibratory form with millions and millions or infinite number of frequencies on these waves all combining together interferentially to give rise to physical matter that we know and are comfortable with. And so physical matter is changeable as a result of all of these frequencies, so we can connect with those frequencies to change physical matter, and that's called coupling. And one of my other great teachers is Professor Tiller, whom I want to talk a bit about and show his book. Let me put it here. Professor Tiller has a website, tiller.org, that I recommend you go, and a lot of his lectures are available for free at tiller.org. And he's one of the world's foremost researchers in this area. He's done work with biological specimens and telekinesis and telepathy. This is another book where he's a contributory scientist in this book. This book came out last year, so it's very new information. There are many authors here whose names you'll be familiar with. Dean Radin, Henry Stapp, Erwin Laszlo, Elizabeth Rauscher, many famous scientists in this area of higher dimensional energy, sometimes called zero-point energy. But zero-point energy is not quite fine enough. We're talking about a dimension that's subquantum and beyond zero-point energy, where information is stored, not just raw energy. Although raw energy is important, but this information is important. That information comes, and our role is to convert information into meaning, because information alone doesn't do anything. We are the organs, the agents of transforming and transmuting information into a meaningful structure. That's why we are inventive, and we create music and other forms of art that have meaning, because information does not intrinsically have meaning. So back to Dr. Backster and his work, and the Backster Effect, and he found that the chicken eggs could be measured, and already are setting in motion experimental attempts to reduplicate these experiments. And I've already ordered an EEG amplifier. Let me tell you a bit about the kind of problem that results from trying to measure these voltages. On a plant, or even in the human scalp, we're not likely to get more than about 1 to 10 microvolts, which is extremely small. And we've got to get that signal up to about 10 volts to be able to measure it, put it into a computer, or look at it on an oscilloscope. So we need an amplification of at least 1 to 10 million times to get that 1 microvolt. So I've ordered, and I received today, perhaps we can see the picture of the latest in EEG amplifiers. It's a tiny little amplifier, about 5 millimeters across, extremely small, and has thousands of transistors, but it has a gain, thank you. It has a gain of 2,000. It's called an instrumentation amplifier, and I'll follow it up with another amplifier of a gain of 1,000, so that'll give us 1,000 times 2,000, a gain of 2 million. One of the problems in picking up signals like that from a plant or a human or an animal is that there are many volts of noise signals on the body of the plant or the animal, so we need to have a way of reducing or eliminating the noise, and that's called common mode noise rejection. This particular amplifier, which I now have, has an incredibly high common mode rejection of well over 1 million times. It has 140 dB of noise rejection. So this is the very latest and the highest quality. It's only about $21. So I'll be trying that out this weekend. We're going to measure, and I have the plant already. Perhaps Gaddy can show us the plant. It has large leaves that will give good signals. And the plant is in my office, guarded by my cat Tesla, who was looking at it. So we're going to set this in motion, and hopefully by next time, 2 weeks, we'll have some graphs to show you of responses. Now, one thing about this kind of work, and you'll find this in Professor Tiller's book, that you can't just suddenly do an experiment without some preparation. Interestingly, the Backster Effect was being reduplicated by many people, including the Mythbusters on television. They did that. They got a Backster Effect only with a plant, but not with the eggs and yogurt was another substance. So, but we've found, and Tilla tells us, that the room or the space has to be conditioned to get the best responses. So you can't just do it anywhere, and it takes time to build up a resonance, what he calls conditioning of the space and the time to build up a receptive situation. You know. One of the other important items that come up in Chapter 1 on the Backster Effect is the power of hypnosis, and how one man was hypnotized to not see his daughter. What page was that now? He called it invisibility, hypnotic invisibility. He couldn't see his daughter, so when he came out of trance, he couldn't see her. But Baxter put a watch on her back, and he was able to see through her body and read the time on the watch and the inscription, the manufacturer's name. So there are very strange things happening with reality. Perhaps he was not actually seeing through the body, but was being given information that was being passed from one side of the body to the other through the higher dimensions. They're also called the Akashic dimensions. So these dimensions are many, many levels of storage and information providing and healing. All of these information signals come, and they can heal, they can change our DNA in ways that will be described in later chapters. The remote viewing and astral projection is another phenomenon that occurs in hypnosis, where people are able to see events happening in distant locations where distance and time are not restrictions. I'd also refer you to the Michael Talbot's book, The Holographic Universe, which lists many of these kinds of experiences. Now, with regard to the applications of this in health and healing, this work and Tiller's work forms the basis of the science of radionics. And I brought a couple of my radionics books. Radionics is interacting at a distance for purposes of healing or changing the biology of a plant or animal. At first it was done in agriculture to promote better crops and to inhibit pests and bugs and insects. So radionics was a way of connecting at a distance with distant biological specimens. So this is one of my great teachers is David Tansley, the Englishman, who was an early pioneer in radionics. He was not the first. The first was Abrams, Dr. Abrams in the US, and he discovered radionics accidentally by percussing, which is tapping on the abdomen of his patients. And he found that he got bizarre dulling effects on certain parts of their abdomen, which indicated certain diseases. So from that, he realized that there was some kind of information being provided through the human body, which also brings up the issue of dowsing and getting information from the human body. As you probably know, in homeopathy and radionics, there's a technique of diagnosis called dowsing, which uses a pendulum or uses the L-rods or a fork for finding water. That's called dowsing. But that same technique is used successfully in radionics and radiesthesia. So let me put another book up. Medical radiesthesia, and these books are, this work has been done by quite eminent, respected, experienced researchers. Radiesthesia is a way of diagnosing conditions at a distance, finding out what are the prevailing negative patterns that might be causing disease before it actually manifests in the physical body. And it seems that In our higher bodies, we have, beyond our physical, we have the etheric, the astral, the mental, and the causal bodies. And these bodies, particularly the etheric and the astral, they carry within them the predisposition to diseases that manifest later. They are called miasms, M-I-A-S-M. A miasm is a negative predisposition to disease or disorder or tragedy of some kind. So much of radionics is working at these higher levels, the levels where acupuncture works and beyond that. Acupuncture works at the level of the etheric body, which pervades inside all of the pathways, the pathways and the chakras of the body. And these energy points are points where we connect with these higher dimensions. And much of the radionic work, picking up information, we put electrodes over the chakras to pick up the information. So this radiesthesia is a way of diagnosing, not so much in the physical plane, it's diagnosing what may be imminent. And the healing is also done at these higher levels, so that it actually is much more effective than working at the physical level. So I'd like to encourage you to buy this book, as well as the book that we're working on now, which is The Field by David Wilcock. This book is a contribution by many authors, and it's very worthwhile to get. Now,
John, source field investigations.
The source field investigation is the title of the book. So I encourage you to go on to thatchannel.com and order a paperback copy, which is quite inexpensive. And we're going to go session by session through each chapter. The next chapter is chapter 2, which is quite small. So I propose that for next time in 2 weeks, that we do chapters 2 and 3, because chapter 3 is one of my favorite chapters. It's on the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is a part of our chakra meridian system. The pineal gland is the primary gland of the body that controls all other glands, controls the pituitary, controls the thymus, which in turn controls the immune system. So the pineal is one of our most precious organs, and we have to protect it. So we're going to do chapters 2 and 3 next time. One of the other areas where Backster did his work was with white blood cells that he got from inside people's mouths. They found that the white blood cells had a connection with the source individual, the owner, and they would give electrical signals measured by 2 gold electrodes. They would give changes in their conductivity and their electrical output, depending on what the person, the parent person, was experiencing at that time. I want to also tell you a bit about some other books that I've found very helpful, particularly books by Dolores Cannon, who has had thousands of clients in trance-like hypnotic state of consciousness. We sometimes call it the theta state because it's below the alpha. Alpha is around 10 to 12 hertz. The theta state is around 7 or 8, that actually being around Schumann resonance, which is 7.83 hertz. So perhaps it's because that theta state is somehow resonating with the frequency of the planet that it's so effective. And in that state, individuals have re-experiencing of what they feel are report as past lives, not only on this planet, but as other beings and forms of energy. And I'd recommend you look on DoloresCannon.com and watch some of her videotapes and lectures. We are also going to cover geometry, sacred geometry, and the importance of that. And you'll find that there are many chapters here about pyramid energy, the Platonic solids that are important not only at a level, physical level, but in the galaxies and the planets and the movements of planets, that all these geometries, the dodecahedron, icosahedron, the tetrahedron, the cube, and the octahedron. All of these are important, and perhaps because they are inherently present in these higher dimensional fields, the cosmic crystalline lattice, which is also being called the Akashic Records, where information is stored in a form that is not quite available. It has to be not only downloaded, but it has to be transmuted into a form that our brains can understand. And I'll give you an example. The famous savant boy in England, his name was Daniel Tammet. He's the boy who was able to recite pi to 25,500 decimal places. So the question is, where was he getting that from? It wasn't simple memory. He was being given the next number in that random number series, which is infinite for pi. So how could he get each number? And he did it quite quickly, faster than the computers could keep up with him to verify. So he was getting it in a form or a language that was non-numerical. He didn't see the number 9 or the number 7. He saw shapes. Shapes that came to him in his inner vision. And each shape for Daniel Tammet represented a number that he could recognize. And he describes it quite well in his books. One of his books, autobiography of Daniel Tammet, is Born on a Blue Day, where he's a very intelligent, educated young man. He's able to describe his experience, and he's been very helpful. The Mayo Clinic took him over to the US from England to do some studies and to verify his abilities. So he is another example of how supernormal people, we call them savants, can tap into those energy fields. And can we do that? To some extent we can, but we have to be conditioned, as Dr. Tiller points out. We have to be conditioned, and some people already preconditioned by their very nature by being autistic savants. Something in their brain where they don't function well in majority of areas, but they have this unique exquisite capability where they are able to tap into these Akashic dimensions. Another interesting story about Daniel Tammet: he was invited to learn the most difficult language in the world in 1 week, and then go on TV and have a conversation in that most difficult language. It turns out that they discovered that Icelandic is the most difficult language in the world. So he went to Iceland, he was taken there, and he learned Icelandic for a week and was on Reykjavik television, demonstrating how he was able to learn in 1 week this most difficult language. Many other savants are able to memorize a whole telephone directory. It seems like they have information in unlimited, infinite memory. But that doesn't make sense physiologically, that the human brain, the hippocampus, which is the memory part, would have such capacity, or even the DNA. It's more likely that they are a direct conduit and a connection with these Akashic dimensions. Professor Tiller calls it coupling. And he very well describes how there are 3 dimensions of reality. There's the unmanifest higher dimension in the cosmic crystalline lattice. There's the physical plane where we are in our knowledge. And in between, there's this coupling that Tiller and others think flows like a fluid. So it's like a fluid. And to me, it's reminiscent of the old Judeo-Christian idea of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit being this flow of loving information and healing. It turns out, too, that we feed back. So there's a feedback loop as a circuit of flow of this energy and information. So that's why it's so important that what we feed back, what goes around comes around. So it's important that we are careful about what we feed back to the universe in terms of our thoughts and our intentions, because intention seems to be the most powerful force in the universe. Intention makes meaning out of reality, and intention has that power to make the connection. If we had some audience here, we could have some questions that would give me a bit of a inspiration. Any questions, Hugh and Gadi, or comments? Yeah?
I kept asking you.
There was so much information, and he told me there was going to be no questions, but wow.
Okay, you know what? I have a question. Can you explain how intention is really the most powerful and how that feedback loop works?
What?
How intention works, and what is a feedback loop?
How the feedback loop works?
Well, there have been a lot of psychotherapists have used and taught the power of intention and how to heal ourselves using the power of intention. Oh yeah, and that reminds me, the famous book by Lynn McTaggart, which I've mentioned in the past 2 sessions, her book, The Intention Experiment, and there's now an experiment you can do on the internet, contributing your intention as part of a mass intention which has more power than individuals. Turns out that man-woman couples, or a loving couple, and a loving couple form a very powerful intention source, and they get better results in the research studies than any other group. So that's perhaps one of the importance of being in a good loving relationship. So the power of intention. There are people, scientists, who have shown that we must visualize positive situations, preferably with movement and with color. And there's something else that's important. There has to be humor to get the most effect. Humor, or a silly picture. And I did the Mega Memory course many years ago, and they taught us that you have to create a picture, but a silly picture that will stick in your mind. Somebody's name, for example, you have to create a silly picture around that name, and it will be powerfully represented and memorized.
When you talked about the pyramids, yeah, hi doctor. How are you? Thank you so much. I'm learning so much, and I do truly appreciate your work. What I was going to ask you, with the shapes of the pyramids and these geometrical shapes, why in particular is certain shapes more powerful than others? And as you know, I'm learning from you, so I know you know this knowledge about the geometric shapes and all that. Is the governments of the world actually implementing other geometrical shapes and formations around the earth right now, and using this energy that's unbeknownst to the regular man?
That's a good question. Is why do some shapes and forms have effects and power and influence that others don't have? And that whole area of sacred geometry is of great interest to me. So these shapes obviously are a representation, as below, so above. So they obviously are representing the shapes of the cosmic lattice, hidden in ways we cannot see because it's 10 to the minus 20 meters, too small for our technology right now. So these shapes are obviously present, and we resonate with them, just like a key in a lock. So that's number one. Also, certain rituals also resonate. That's why the importance of rituals in certain religious groups, the power of ritual to go through certain steps, somehow resonates with that order and in the higher dimensions. And certainly there are perhaps patterns that we don't even know about. And we're being given patterns every year. We're given hundreds and hundreds of new powerful patterns called the crop circles. I have a strong interest in the crop circle. They're just so outstanding and innovative. And there are hundreds of them in England and Germany, all over the world. And they have a message to give to us.
So these crop circles are not man-made?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just wanted your opinion.
Are by the plankers who get planks and walk around, but they don't compare to the complexity of the most outstanding crop circles. And next time, perhaps we'll have some pictures of crop circles to show you. So crop circles, I think, are the new mandalas, the new sacred geometry that we're being given as gifts that we can use as tools to effect change and to link with the cosmic lattice and be more powerful.
So, okay, my question would be then, are these crop circles a message, or are they sort of a schooling or a past, like, is it a tool to help us in the future or to make us aware of our past? Like, do you think that these patterns are patterns that we need now, or they existed for millenniums that we as a human race need to catch up to? What's your view on that?
Yeah, they're all so different. No one has really been able to decipher them, except a few are quite obvious. There's one that's pi, 3.1419, and it's on a circular format. So that's very clearly a message of saying that we're here, and keep listening, keep tuned in, is like the message. And there are many others that have become more and more intricate, more and more three-dimensional, the crop circles. So perhaps there will be future messages, or they have a use that we don't understand yet. Yeah.
Right. Today, earlier on the show, on Liquid Lunch, I was a guest on the show today, and so was a medium, and he said he could speak to spirits, and I asked him if he could talk to my grandmother, etc., right? Is there a way that the common man could be more in tune with his surroundings? Is there you talk about a lot of complex things, but I'm just saying in layman's terms, how could I, as a normal everyday person without no knowledge, right, get more in tune with my universe and my surroundings? Is there an exercise that I could start out with, or some sort of meditation that I could do?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. We should all be doing work called yoga. Yoga is work on ourselves. There's a famous saying, if you don't go within, you go without. So we have to do work on ourselves. It's called yoga, and it could be anything. It's each to his own yoga and a discipline. This is my yoga, being here. It's stressful, right. It's a challenge. I have to work at it. So this is my yoga. Oh, interestingly too, I've noticed in the last month, doing this work more profoundly and deeply, I feel changes within myself. And I have 2 cats at home, and they are coming around me more than ever before. They seem to be attracted to the energy that I now have, which I had before, but not to this extent. So so I would say that find your yogas, find your ways of going within through meditation, chanting. Some people climb Mount Everest or become Olympic athletes as their yoga, as their discipline to going within.
Right. The only question I would have is, things could be challenging, but are they in a positive way? How do we know that a crossword puzzle could be challenging to me, but also things that are depressing or trial to me could be challenging to me? How do I know where I'm putting my energy is the right spot? For example, you talked about you're reading your books. Like, I love to read books. When you talked about finding my yoga, first thing that came to my mind is I'm a horse racing fan, and I love my horse racing form. Right? So a lot of us at the horse track, we're horse players, we think that we have some sort of yoga or karma over the form. So how do I really find my destiny in my challenge? Because a challenge could be anything. It could be something good or it could be something bad, but it's still a challenge. How do I know that it's the right thing to gravitate to?
Well, when you go within, you'll get the message, and that's the whole purpose. As you keep doing, you'll get a sense that this is of interest to you, as this is for me, but it's an effort. It takes time, takes work, and unless there's effort or work and challenge, there isn't much result. So if you feel, and you'll feel yourself improved, you'll feel like after a workout physically, people feel improved. That's a yoga. That enhances their higher self. Yeah.
Right. Just one last comment I'd like to make. I don't know if you has the question to ask, but I really admire your work, and I really like how you're very fluent when you speak I love your knowledge, and I think your message is a positive message. I feel that in today's society, that a lot is lost on the youths. They seem to be first thing I have 7 kids, and the first thing when I say to my kids, they think I'm challenging them when I'm trying to teach them. I feel that a lot of youths today, they don't want to read books. They want to be mostly absorbed by the internet, television, etc., and I don't think that's always the positive message. How do we still be the creators of this message and encourage our youth to seek knowledge? Because I don't know if you believe in life or death, but let's just say there is no more doctor, there is no more Johnny Smash. How is that message going to be conveyed to the youth and be able to pass on to one another? How are we going to do that? Because I find that's a great challenge in today's world. I mean, like as a parent or even as a student, your day, like 24 hours is not enough.
No, as I said last time and a month ago, children at school, kids at school from 12 years of age onwards are quite capable of being told this material and how the universe really works. Now, why are they not? Why is it, with 1966, Baxter did this work. Why is it still almost 50 years later, the general public don't know about it, even though he has been on television and Coast to Coast and other important programs. But it should be part of the curriculum in school, that children should be told the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Right.
And Nikola Tesla is not mentioned in any of the textbooks.
One would almost think there was a suppression at work.
Deliberate
And Nikola
suppression.
Tesla is the Russian?
Nikola Tesla is the reason why we have electricity around us.
Tesla invented radio.
Right.
And radio.
And the idea was plagiarized by Marconi, who did take it to another level. But Tesla was not granted the
Patent?
well, he got the
credit?
patent, but he was not granted credit
Right.
until after his death.
Okay.
And those ideas were stolen from him, and his presence in history has been minimized. No.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Huey. Did you have something else?
On the subject of Tesla, as you probably know, he built a transmitting tower called Wardenclyffe in Long Island near Montauk in New York, and he was about to provide this energy. It wasn't electromagnetic energy, and we have to realize that these energies are not electromagnetic, because you can put them inside a metal box and that does not shield the energy. Still this high frequency energy goes through. These were the scalar waves, the longitudinal scalar waves that he wanted to power the planet with, so we wouldn't have to burn coal and pollute the air and the environment and the water. Yeah.
Just taking a break.
Oh, my name is John Stewart, president of Biophysica, Inc., and a biomedical engineer. We make the world's most advanced colloidal generators for domestic and industrial quantities of mineralized waters. Many bottling plants worldwide use our generators to make colloidal silver, the world's most life-saving antimicrobial supplement, as well as colloidal zinc, gold, magnesium, copper, iron, etc. Biophysica advanced generators produce the smallest nanomolecules to ensure potency against the smallest, most vicious viruses. A Biophysica colloidal generator will give your family the best quality colloidal silver for many years, quickly, cheaply, and easily. Contact us at biophysica.com or call us at 416-636-5804. I want to talk a bit about quantum physics, non-locality, and nanoparticles. I specialize in colloidal minerals for nutritional supplementation, and it seems that when we all need minerals in our body, like iron, magnesium, we need about 600 milligrams a day. We need zinc to make our immune systems work, and there are more trace minerals that we need, such as silver and gold, that are not well recognized as being essential, but we now realize that silver is an essential mineral, and we need it around 300 micrograms a day, that's 0.3 milligrams a day of silver, and many other trace minerals we need in those amounts. Silver boosts the immune system just like zinc does. So zinc and silver are very important for immunity. So many people with immune disorders would be well advised to take colloidal zinc and colloidal silver. Now, colloidal gold is reputed to have benefits on the brain, and we think possibly on the pineal gland and the hippocampus, which is the area of memory. So when you take gold, colloidal gold, like a homeopathic remedy, into the orally, it's absorbed through the mucous membranes. It goes right into the bloodstream and into the brain. And brain enhances cognition, and research has been done to show people had intelligence tests before and after taking colloidal gold, and it was found that their intelligence was enhanced quite substantially. I think it was Dr. Jacobson who did that work. I have available that if you email me, I can send you a link to that particular those particular research work. Also, I have a page on my website for all of these minerals, each of them, a page called gold.html. Will give you all of this information about the benefits of colloidal gold on consciousness. So, and these minerals, because they're colloidal, they're down at the nanoparticle size, and particularly with gold, it's got to be less than 5 nanometers to have its power and effectiveness. So how do we get such small nanoparticles without being atomic? And how we do that is through the electrolysis of water using pure electrodes of gold or of silver or of magnesium, and etc. So, and those nanoparticles are around less than 5 nanometers. So a nanometer is 1,000th of a micron, a micrometer. So it's 10 to the minus 9 is 1 nanometer. And it turns out too that at those dimensions, anything less than 10 nanometers, quantum effects become manifest. And they non-locality mean action at a distance, connectedness, which is the basis of telepathy. So we expect to have these special phenomena. Tunneling is another quantum phenomenon that occurs when the dimensions are small enough. And that's why our nerve axons come down, 2 nerves come into contact with each other through a gap. They don't infiltrate. There's a gap of about 20 to 25 nanometers, and that dimension allows for quantum non-locality. So that could explain why our brains are quantum devices. Another area is the nanotubules, or they're called microtubules, but they're really nanotubules that are inside the cells, like little fibers, but they're hollow. And inside that hollow, there's the vibrations of the quantum fields happening at these very high frequencies. So that could be another substrate of consciousness. And the famous Hameroff and Penrose proposed that these microtubules are the foundation or the substrate of consciousness. We now think that perhaps they are resonating transducers that allow us to connect with these very, very high frequencies. So it would make sense that these are the substrates of our quantum connectedness to the cosmic crystalline lattice, or I also call the Akashic records.
John, I want to ask you a practical question. Where can I find colloidal gold or any metal?
All of these metals, you can make your own at home using equipment which I have invented and I now offer on my website. So you can make this legally at home and use it for your own use. And you can make it with a very high degree of quality. Colloidal quality is defined by the small nanoparticle size, around 1 to 10 nanometers, because those small particles can penetrate into the cells and even get down into the into the smallest, the nucleus of the cells and the mitochondria. The mitochondria are around half a micron, 500 nanometers, and the colloidal nanoparticles are just small enough to enter inside and affect our ATP, adenosine triphosphate, where the energy of the body is manufactured in the mitochondria of every cell of the body. And we also need to manufacture that energy. We need a liberal availability of free electrons, because the ultimate food of life is free electrons, and that's what's carried by ATP to our brain. So it's important that, and water carries the ATP, so it's important that we have water that can penetrate into the mitochondria, which brings up the other question of polymeric water. Water, as we know it, is for the most part a polymer. It's not, water is not H2O, it's H2O, H2O, H2O in a pattern or a sheet or a clathrate where it folds around on itself. So these larger polymeric water molecules are not able to penetrate either into the cell or into the mitochondria. So we can be dehydrated at a deep cellular level no matter how much water we drink, if you're drinking the wrong water, polymeric water. So that's why you can buy detergent-like supplements that will make the water wetter. In other words, it will take away the surface tension that resides in bulk water. So that's just an aside to water. But these nanoparticles are capable of interacting with the cosmic lattice dimensions because of their small size. Does that answer your question?
It does. I'm also interested in other metals or minerals that this equipment might produce, like such as silver or zinc or magnesium.
Yeah, we need a certain minimal amount, a daily minimum requirement of all of these minerals. Even some more trace, like chromium we need, vanadium, boron, in ultra trace amounts. So if we don't get chromium, we get anemia, for example. So these are molybdenum. We need in the correct proportion. We need all of those colloidal minerals in a colloidal form, not so much in a chemical form, because in a chemical form they're locked into another radical. For example, silver. Silver becomes an oxide. It's not absorbable. So we need it in a pure colloidal form.
What kind of conditions can the consumption of colloidal silver help?
Colloidal silver has been shown to inactivate viruses and bacteria and some other multicellular organisms. But you know, our greatest enemy on this planet are viruses. There are millions and millions and millions of viruses we don't even know about, have not been discovered. They're so small. And there are even nanoviruses called prions, P-R-I-O-N, that cause mad cow disease and similar brain disorders, and could be causing Alzheimer's, could be causing Parkinson's, MS, diabetes, have all been linked to some of these very small vicious viruses. However, the research has been done to show that the silver has an activated HIV virus, so that it could be promising in the treatment of many viral conditions to help neutralize, inactivate the respiratory mechanisms of the viruses. Be aware that the nanoparticles have to be small enough to interact with these small vicious viruses. If the particles are too big, if you have a colloidal silver or gold that has a yellow or a red color, that means that it's interacting with light. Red is 600 nanometers on the wavelength, so 600 nanometers is far too big. It's not going to be as effective. It'll help with bacteria, but not with the smallest, most vicious viruses. Also, cancer, be aware, is very definitely linked with viruses. So we really should be taking our colloidal silver and zinc every day as a preventive against very serious conditions. Yeah. So I want to talk about moving on to some of the work follows on from Dr. Backster and the work of Dr. Tiller, who's been incredibly meticulous in his research work, and he's done work. I have a strong interest in magnetic fields, and he's shown that there's a difference between the south pole and the north pole of a magnet. In our normal classical physics and reality, there's no difference. They're both magnetic field. But in the domain of healing and in the domain of the cosmic crystalline lattice, it's the south pole that's most effective, and is most effective for healing. When an intention, the south pole will contribute to the power of intention. So here's an important use of magnets. The south pole, when they put it under a vessel and they want to change the pH, the acidity and the acid-base balance, is a very convenient quality to intend to change. So they have found they've been able to change the pH by over 1 pH unit, and that's a logarithmic unit, so it's quite substantial by the power of intention, and they can make it go down or up. They can make it go up to 8 or so, which is more alkaline, or they can go from 7 down to 6 or so, which is more acidic. But when they put a south pole, the south pole facing up into the liquid, it enhanced the power of intention. And when they put the north pole up, it impaired and detracted from the power of intention. So that's something to learn about in healing, the power of the south pole of a magnet. Another area I wanted to talk about was channeling. How is it some people are able to have the gift of getting information, clairvoyance, precognition, powers in action at a distance? It's called channeling because it's through a channel, through some connectedness, or as Professor Tiller calls it, coupling. The coupling or connectedness. So it seems from Tiller's work that our brain, our mind, our microtubules, our nanotubules can interact with this coupling domain, which seems separate, a separate domain, a separate entity almost. Is it intelligent? Ancient religions would say so, that the Holy Spirit is an intelligent entity, or a collection of intelligence that we can interact with, and it then interacts with the more refined dimensions. So some people say, well, there are angels, there are entities, Archangel Michael or so, who talked to me and gave me this information, or who healed me. So are these intervening angelic coupling agents that connect us from the physical plane to the higher dimension? So that's something to speculate on. And I would say I'd recommend you read Professor Tiller's book, this great the summation of his work. Go onto his website, because he has some more recent lectures that he's given, particularly one in London. And if you go onto tiller.org, you can listen to his work for free. Very, very inspiring work, and the basis of a lot of phenomena that we have to learn about to enhance our ability and to go within, so otherwise we go without. Another scientist I met personally and worked with many years ago was Dr. Bernard Grad from Montreal, McGill University, the famous, one of the early pioneers of this kind of work. He worked in a psychiatric hospital in Montreal, McGill University, and he was a psychologist and did counseling with people, particularly with children. So he did an experiment where he got water, 2 kinds of water. One he put in the children's ward where they were playing happily, and another vessel of water in the psychiatric ward with psychotic and schizophrenic depressed patients. And then he had a third water which was the control, had no influence. And he found that the different waters had different effects on the growing of plants, that the happy water, let's call it, from the happy children's ward enhanced the growth and the floweration and the the flowers growing from the plants, whereas the unhappy water had that kind of effect. It had a depressing, deterrent effect on the growth of the plants, and the control was in between. So that's a very early work that Bernard Grad did, and I had the honor of meeting him personally many years ago when I worked in Ottawa as a scientist with the federal government. So, are there any other questions we should bring up?
Yeah, it's not a question so much. It's a comment on a question that was posed here before about the subject of intention. Beyond the work of, is it Grad? Yeah, beyond his work, there's Professor Emoto that has taken this work and extended it to people basically sending all kinds of intentions to water, and then he was able to somehow crystallize it and view it on a microscope. And what we've discovered is that that different intentions basically form different types of like sacred geometry kind of shapes. If the intention was love, or whether it was Mozart music that the water was exposed to, you got very phenomenal, coherent geometric shapes. And if it was hate, then you would get just blotches of black things, incoherent kind of shapes. So water definitely responds to intention and becomes a reflection of the intention.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I attended a workshop with Professor Emoto a few years ago when he was in Toronto, showing us his impressive slides and pictures of water crystals and how during the crystallization process they seem to interact with this cosmic crystalline lattice. So it's through the coupling agency. So I think we've got to honor that coupling agency and realize that this could be a real entity. So Emoto's work, where prevailing emotion and consciousness couples through to the higher dimensions, which in turn creates a pattern in reality. So. But you brought up another good point on sacred geometry. I have a special interest in the Chartres labyrinth, which is the labyrinth pattern that's in the cathedral in Chartres. And I use that in all of my products. The energy goes through the Chartres labyrinth before it goes into the silver or gold electrodes, so that the labyrinthine energy and patterns are impressed into the water. Yeah. So are we finished now?
We are in the process of saying goodbye to our wonderful listeners.
Well, thank you all, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. We'll do chapter 2 and 3. 3 is the pineal gland, so that's a very important chapter that we'll do very thoroughly. There's a lot of information, how magnetic fields affect the pineal gland, DMT, melatonin, etc. So look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks' time. Thank you. My name is John Stewart, President of Biophysica, Inc., and a biomedical engineer. We make the world's most advanced colloidal generators for domestic and industrial quantities of mineralized waters. Many bottling plants worldwide use our generators to make colloidal silver, the world's most life-saving antimicrobial supplement, as well as colloidal zinc, gold, magnesium, copper, iron, etc. Biophysica advanced generators produce the smallest nanomolecules to ensure potency against the smallest, most vicious viruses. A Biophysica colloidal generator will give your family the best quality colloidal silver for many years, quickly, cheaply, and easily. Contact us at biophysica.com or call us at 416-636-5804.